Tonight, we are entering one of the strangest stories in the book of Daniel, the story of Nebuchadnezzar, the mighty king of Babylon, who lost his place among human beings and lived like an animal in the open field. How did a ruler powerful enough to command nations fall from his palace into the grass? Why did a dream warn him before it happened? And what did his collapse reveal about the limits of human greatness? This is not only a story about madness, it is a story about power, warning, pride, silence, humiliation, and restoration. It begins in Babylon, among guards, stone walls, royal courts, and the confidence of a king who believed his greatness could be seen in the city beneath him. But it ends far from the palace, under the open sky, where dew falls on the body of a man who once wore a crown. The biblical text tells this story in Daniel 4. Daniel is a book filled with dreams, kings, kingdoms, exiles, and strange moments when earthly power is forced to face something higher than itself. Its world is not quiet or safe. Empires rise, cities fall. Young captives are taken from their homeland. Foreign kings issue commands that can decide who lives, who bows, and who is forgotten. Nebuchadnezzar is the king of Babylon, the empire that conquered Jerusalem, the sacred city of the people of Judah, and carried many of them away from their homeland to the people of Judah. Exile was not just relocation, it was grief, disorientation, and the terrifying question of whether faith could survive when the temple was far away. The king was defeated, and the songs of home had to be remembered in a foreign land. Among those exiles was Daniel, a young Jewish man brought into Babylon's royal world and trained to serve in the court of the empire that had defeated his people. In this story, he does not fight the king. He does not raise a rebellion. He stands before Nebuchadnezzar and tells him the truth about a dream no one else can safely explain. And from that moment, the story moves like a shadow across Babylon. A warning is spoken. A year passes. The city continues. The king looks down from the roof of his palace. Then a voice from heaven interrupts him, and the crown he trusted can no longer follow where he is about to go. Before Nebuchadnezzar ever stepped into the field, before his hair grew wild and his nails became like claws, he stood at the center of one of the greatest powers of the ancient world. Babylon was not only a city in the biblical imagination, it was a place of walls, gates, temples, royal roads, and imperial memory, a city that seemed to rise out of brick and stone, as if human power itself had taken physical form. Imagine its palace courts under the sun, its soldiers near the gates, its officials moving through corridors of command. Messengers carried royal orders into lands that would never see the king's face, yet still felt the force of his name. From Babylon, a ruler could decide the fate of cities, peoples, temples, and kings. A decree spoken in the palace could become fear in a village far away. This is what makes Nebuchadnezzar such a powerful figure for the story. He is not introduced as a weak man trying to gain authority. He already has it. He stands in a world that answers to him. He is surrounded by the visible signs of rule: servants, courtyards, guards, officials, records, tribute, and the slow machinery of empire. For the people of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar's name carried pain, Babylon had come against Jerusalem, the city tied to their worship, their kings, and their memory of God's promises. Families were torn from familiar streets. Young men were carried into a foreign world. The language, food, customs, and gods of Babylon pressed around them like the walls of a new life they had not chosen. Daniel belonged to that wounded world. In the story, he is a Jewish exile living inside the palace of the conqueror. The Babylonians gave him another name, Belteshazzar, a court name shaped by the empire's culture. A new name was not a small thing. It was one way empire tried to reshape memory, identity, and loyalty. Yet beneath that name, Daniel remained connected to the God of Israel. The book of Daniel presents him as a man who could live inside Babylon without letting Babylon fully possess him. He learns the language of the court. He stands among officials. He serves near power. But when the king's dreams become troubled, Daniel sees what the empire's own wisdom cannot see. That contrast is important. Nebuchadnezzar has the throne, the army, the city, and the fear of nations. Daniel has no crown. He lives inside the machinery of empire, but he is not truly its possession. When dreams come, when mystery enters the palace, when the king's own mind becomes troubled, it is the exile who understands what the empire cannot master. At first, Nebuchadnezzar seems untouchable. He is surrounded by all the signs of control. His palace is guarded. His servants answer. His officials bow. The city below him bears the marks of royal ambition, and his name is tied to conquest, building, and command. But the story does not begin with an army at the gates. It does not begin with an assassin in the shadows or a revolt in the streets. It begins in a quieter place, inside the hidden life of the king. The biblical text says, Nebuchadnezzar was at ease in his house and prospering in his palace. And that detail makes the danger more unsettling. The threat comes when he seems safe. A king may command soldiers, but he cannot command what rises in sleep. He may build gates, but he cannot lock his mind against a vision. He may rule a city, but he cannot decide what heaven will show him in the night. The first crack in this story is not in Babylon's walls. It is in the royal chamber, where a powerful man wakes troubled by something no servant can remove. The palace remains still. Guards continue their watch. The city outside does not yet know that anything has changed. But in the mind of the king, an image has appeared, and it will not leave him in peace. The man who seems to hold the world beneath his hand has just been reached in the one place no empire can fortify. Nebuchadnezzar's dream was not small. It did not come as a vague shadow or a passing omen. It came as a great tree standing in the middle of the earth, rising higher and higher until its top reached toward heaven and its branches could be seen from the ends of the world. At first, the image is almost beautiful. The tree is strong. Its leaves are fresh. Its fruit is abundant. Animals rest beneath its shade, and birds live among its branches. Every living creature seems to draw something from it, as if the whole world has gathered under one vast life. For animation, the dream should unfold slowly. A dark earth, a single trunk pushing upward, roots gripping the soil, branches widening across the sky, birds moving through leaves, animals settling below. The tree becomes more than a tree. It becomes height, shelter, reach, food, and majesty. It is the kind of image a king might secretly recognize. One life standing above many others, one center feeding everything below it, one greatness visible across the earth. In the dream, the tree does not hide its power. It fills the horizon, and everything beneath it seems to depend on its shade. Then the dream changes. Nebuchadnezzar sees a watcher, a holy one, coming down from heaven. The biblical text does not give a long explanation of this figure. It lets the command carry the fear: cut down the tree, lop off its branches, strip its leaves, scatter its fruit. Let the animals flee from under it, and the birds from its branches. The living tower is suddenly marked for judgment. What seemed permanent is not permanent. What seemed too high to reach can still be struck. The creatures that once rested beneath it scatter, and the sky that held its branches now hears the order against it. The dream that began with abundance becomes a vision of loss. But the tree is not destroyed completely. The stump is left in the earth. It is bound with iron and bronze, wet with the dew of heaven, held in the ground as if something remains, but not yet restored. The image is no longer only about greatness falling. It is about greatness cut down and left to wait. This detail gives the dream its strange mercy. The tree is cut, but not erased. The height is removed, but the root is not entirely gone. Something survives under restraint, exposed to the weather, unable to rise by its own strength, already. The dream contains both judgment and the possibility that judgment will not be the final word. Then the dream becomes even stranger. It speaks of a mind changed from that of a human being to that of a beast. It speaks of 7 times passing over him. The story does not pause to explain every detail of that phrase, and later readers have understood it in different ways. What matters for the story is clear. An appointed period of humiliation is coming, long enough for a king to be brought down from royal honor into animal-like existence. This is where the dream reaches deeper than politics. It is not only a throne being threatened, it is human dignity itself. The king will not simply lose control of a city. He will lose his place among people. The one who lived above others will be placed under the open sky, near the grass, among the beasts. Nebuchadnezzar does not yet understand the dream, but the audience can already feel its direction. Something tall will fall. Something visible will be cut down. Something human will become beast-like. The shape of the future has appeared before anyone in the palace dares to name it. The king summons the wise men of Babylon. These are the court specialists, the men expected to read signs, dreams, omens, and hidden meanings. They belong to the world of royal knowledge, with scrolls, rituals, training, and access to the king. They stand inside a culture that believes mysteries can be studied, categorized, and brought into the service of power. But this dream resists them. That failure matters. Babylon can build walls, train scribes, organize priests, preserve records, and advise kings. But the dream stands beyond the empire's control. The king has seen something that his own system cannot master. The room fills not only with confusion, but with the humiliation of Babylon's wisdom before a mystery it cannot open. So Daniel is brought in. The exile enters the room where Babylon's wisdom has gone silent. The king knows him by the name Belteshazzar, but the story lets us remember who he is beneath that name. He is a man from the people Babylon defeated, and now he must explain the dream that tells Babylon's king he is not as secure as he believes. The tree still stands in the imagination of the room. Its branches are unseen now, but their shadow is there. The axe has not yet fallen in the waking world, but Daniel already hears what it means. When Daniel hears the dream, he understands it, but understanding does not make him quick to speak. The biblical text says he is troubled for a time, and that pause gives the scene its weight. Daniel is not standing in a safe place. He is standing before Nebuchadnezzar, the king of the empire that had conquered his people. This is the man whose power had reached Jerusalem, whose armies had changed the lives of families Daniel knew, whose palace now surrounds Daniel with foreign language and royal authority. To speak the truth here is not an abstract act of courage. It is a captive telling the conqueror that judgment is coming to his own house. The room seems to narrow around him. Servants wait. Officials listen. The king watches Daniel's face, perhaps sensing that the dream has not brought good news. The wise men of Babylon could not settle the matter, but the exile now knows too much. This is one of the quiet tensions in the story. Daniel could have spoken with bitterness. He could have treated the dream as revenge against the man whose empire had wounded Judah. But the biblical scene does not move that way. Daniel is troubled, not triumphant. He understands that what he is about to say is terrible, even for a king like Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar tells Daniel not to be alarmed. He wants the interpretation, but the truth he asks for will not honor him. Daniel begins carefully, almost sorrowfully, wishing that the dream might apply to the king's enemies instead. That detail keeps the moment from becoming simple revenge. Daniel is not presented as a man delighting in the king's fall. He is burdened by what he must say. Then he says it. The tree is the king. Nebuchadnezzar is the one who has grown great and strong. His greatness has reached toward heaven, and his rule has extended far across the earth. The animals beneath the tree and the birds in its branches become an image of those living under the shadow of his power. The dream is not random. It is a mirror held before the throne. But the command to cut down the tree is also for him. Daniel tells the king that he will be driven away from people. He will live with the wild animals. He will eat grass like an ox. He will be wet with the dew of heaven. This will continue until he acknowledges that the Most High rules over human kingdoms. For a viewer who may be new to this language, the phrase Most High is the biblical way of speaking about God as ruler above every earthly throne. In Daniel's words, the issue is not whether Nebuchadnezzar has power. The issue is whether he understands that his power is not ultimate. His kingdom may be real, but it is not self-made in the way his pride imagines. Daniel does not stop at prediction. He gives counsel. He urges the king to turn from wrongdoing and show mercy to the oppressed. That matters because the dream is not only a sentence, it is a warning spoken while time remains. The future has opened before Nebuchadnezzar, but it has not yet fallen on him. He has heard the dream. He has heard the interpretation. He has heard a call to change the way he rules in this moment. The story gives him knowledge before it gives him humiliation. That makes what follows more painful. The king is no longer ignorant. The truth has entered the palace and stood before him in the voice of an exile. Daniel has named the tree. He has named the fall. He has named the reason. And still, the story leaves space. It does not tell us that Nebuchadnezzar immediately mocked Daniel. It does not tell us that he repented fully. It does not describe a dramatic scene of anger or fear. Instead, it lets the warning settle into the palace like dust after a door has closed. The palace does not collapse that day. The sky does not break open. Nebuchadnezzar is not immediately driven from the throne. Servants still serve. Officials still bow. The city still shines under the sun. The tree has been marked in the dream. But in the waking world, it still appears to stand. The warning remains in the air, then becomes memory, then becomes something the palace can live around. And every ordinary day after Daniel's words becomes part of the tension. The danger has not passed. It has only become quiet. For 12 months, nothing visible happened. That silence is one of the most dangerous parts of the story. If judgment had come immediately, the lesson would have been terrifying but simple. Instead, Babylon continues. The palace lamps are lit. The gates open and close. Officials cross the courtyards. Servants carry food through royal halls. The city moves through its days as if Daniel's warning has become only another thing once spoken in the throne room. A year is long enough for fear to fade. Long enough for a dream to lose its sharp edges. Long enough for a king to decide that the absence of disaster means safety. And Babylon itself would have helped him forget. Every wall, every gate, every order obeyed. Every bowed head would have whispered the same reassurance. You are still king. But the dream has not disappeared. It is buried beneath a routine. It waits under the stone of the palace like a root hidden in the dark. The tree still stands, but the command against it has already been spoken. The year should feel like a slow countdown no one can hear. Morning after morning, the king wakes in the palace. The throne is still there. His robes are still brought to him. His officials still report. His decisions still matter. Nothing in the visible world tells him he has already been warned by something greater than the city around him. And that is what makes delay so dangerous. A warning that does not immediately strike can begin to feel unreal. Mercy can be mistaken for emptiness. Patience can be mistaken for permission. The longer Babylon remains bright, the easier it becomes for the king to trust the brightness more than the dream. The biblical story brings the tension back on the roof of the royal palace. That location is not accidental. Nebuchadnezzar is high above the city, looking out over Babylon. Beneath him are streets, walls, buildings, and people. Around him is the world his power has shaped. Above him is the sky he has not learned to fear. We can imagine the light stretching across the city, the long lines of brick, the movement of servants below, the distant sound of a city that knows how to live under a king. From that height, Babylon may have looked like proof that Daniel's warning had failed. The king is still standing. The palace is still his. The city still answers to his name. Then Nebuchadnezzar speaks. He looks over Babylon and claims its greatness as the work of his own mighty power and the glory of his majesty. The danger is not that the city is unimpressive. The danger is that the king sees it as a monument that begins and ends with himself. He sees the walls, but not the warning. He sees the palace, but not the dream. He sees the city beneath him, but not the heaven above him. This is the gaze that defines the moment. Earlier, in the dream, the tree reached toward heaven. Now the king stands high and looks downward. He measures greatness by what lies below his feet. And while the words are still in his mouth, a voice comes from heaven. The interruption is immediate. The royal sentence is answered by a higher sentence. No army breaches the gate. No enemy appears on the horizon. No human court gathers to remove him. The voice declares that the kingdom has departed from him. Everything changes at the speed of a spoken word. The palace roof. A moment ago, a place of confidence, becomes the edge of a fall. The city below him remains, but the king's place in it is being taken away. The warning Daniel spoke a year earlier is no longer waiting. It has arrived. In that instant, Babylon can still be seen, but it can no longer save him. The stones remain. The gates remain. The royal terraces remain. But the man standing above them is being separated from the very world that made him look untouchable. The king who looked down over Babylon will soon be beneath the open sky. The voice has cut through the palace air, and now the dream moves from symbol into flesh. Nebuchadnezzar's fall is haunting because it is not described as an ordinary political defeat. He is not simply removed from a throne by another ruler. He is driven away from people. The king who lived among servants, guards, advisors, and royal ceremony loses his place inside human society itself. The biblical text says he ate grass like an ox. His body was wet with the dew of heaven. His hair grew like the feathers of eagles, and his nails like the claws of birds. The details are strange and unsettling, but the story does not need them to become grotesque. Their power is in the quiet humiliation of exposure. We should be careful with this moment. The biblical text does not offer a modern medical diagnosis. Later readers have sometimes compared the king's condition to forms of madness or animal-like delusion. But the story itself is not mainly trying to classify an illness. It presents a sacred humiliation, a ruler brought down from royal self-confidence until he learns what his greatness had hidden from him. The field is the opposite of the palace. In the palace, stone held the heat of the day. Robes covered him. Servants approached him. Titles surrounded him. In the field, there is grass beneath him, dew on his body, sky above him, and time passing without ceremony. The crown cannot follow him there. A crown can mark a head before a court, but it cannot preserve reason. A throne can place a man above others, but it cannot keep him human when his mind has been taken from him. The palace can organize the world around the king, but it cannot hold together the king himself. The story does not tell us every detail of those days. It does not tell us exactly who governed, what officials whispered, or how the court explained the absence of its ruler. That silence keeps our focus where the story wants it, not on palace management, but on the king in the open, the great tree cut down, the stump left in the earth, wet with the dew of heaven. That stump matters. In the dream, the tree was not destroyed completely. Something remained, bound, humbled, exposed, but still there. Nebuchadnezzar's humiliation is severe, but the story has already hinted that it will not be the final word. So time passes. The city continues somewhere beyond him. Babylon's walls still stand. The palace roof still catches the sun. The courts still remember the shape of his absence. But the man who once looked down over everything now lives near the ground, marked by weather, hunger, and silence. There is a strange stillness in this part of the story. The empire does not vanish. The world does not end. The humiliation happens while ordinary life continues somewhere else. That contrast makes the image even heavier. A man can lose himself while the city he built still shines in the distance. Day after day, the open sky replaces the palace ceiling. Night after night, dew replaces royal covering. The body that once moved through guarded halls is exposed to weather. The mouth that once spoke decrees is reduced to animal need. The king who once saw nations beneath him now lives close to the earth. Then the turning point comes, not as a battle, not as a royal decree, not as a triumphant march back through the gates, but as a movement of the eyes. Nebuchadnezzar lifts his eyes toward heaven. Earlier, he looked down from the roof and saw Babylon as the proof of himself. Now, from the field, he looks upward. The movement is simple, but the whole story has been waiting for it. His gaze changes before his kingdom changes. His reason returns before his public honor returns. The biblical text says, his reason came back to him. His kingdom was restored. His officials and nobles sought him out again, and he was returned to royal greatness. But the restoration does not erase the field. It gives the field its meaning. Nebuchadnezzar returns, but not to the same illusion. The man who once spoke as if Babylon existed for his own majesty now praises the King of Heaven. The story does not need to shout its lesson. It has already shown it. The ruler who claimed the city for himself had to lose even the ordinary dignity of human life before he could see the truth above his throne. This is why the restoration matters. If the story ended only with humiliation, it would be a tale of collapse. But Daniel 4 ends with a humbled king speaking after his reason has returned. He is not restored because he proved the dream wrong. He is restored because the dream has done its work. The mystery was never only how a king could live like an animal. The deeper question was what had happened inside him while he still looked powerful. How much of his humanity had already been endangered while he stood on the roof, surrounded by stone, calling Babylon his own? Nebuchadnezzar's story leaves us with two images. In the first, a king stands high on the roof of his palace, looking down over Babylon. The city lies beneath him in brick, gate, wall, and royal memory. He speaks as if all of it exists by his power and for his glory. In the second, that same king is beneath the open sky. The palace is gone from around him. The robes, the servants, the titles, the guarded chambers, all of it has fallen away. He is close to the grass, wet with dew, and the world that made him seem untouchable can no longer shield him. The biblical story does not present his humiliation as a spectacle to enjoy. It shows what power could not protect. Babylon could surround a man with walls, but not save him from the collapse of his own reason. A crown could place him above others, but not keep him from the truth he had refused to see. Yet the ending is not only loss. Nebuchadnezzar's reason returns when his eyes lift upward. Before the throne is restored, the gaze is changed. Before royal honor comes back, the king sees that he was never the highest power in his own story. That is why Daniel 4 remains so unsettling. It does not merely say that pride is dangerous. It shows a ruler who had everything beneath him, then lost the one thing no empire could rebuild by force: the clarity of a human mind before heaven. And still, the story does not leave him only in the grass. The stump remains, the eyes lift, the reason returns. The king comes back to the world of human speech, but his words are different now. The city is no longer only a monument to himself. The throne is no longer only proof of his greatness. Babylon could rise in stone and splendor. A king could stand above it and call it his own. But under the crown was a man, and above the man was a heaven he could not command.